Good evening and welcome to the Monday, November 12, 2018 Guildford Board of Education meeting. This is, of course, a very special day in our nation as we observe Veterans Day. So I want to invite us to join in the Pledge of Allegiance, recognizing really the service and the gifts that the veterans have given us that honestly just allow us to engage in this activity of public education. With that, I'd ask that we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In light of it being Veterans Day, I'd like to ask the board's concurrence to add an agenda item, a report from Ted Fessel, our liaison to the veteran community. Is there a motion to add that to the agenda?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then also we have the happy responsibility of adding something to the agenda specifically concerning expected replacement of a board member. With congratulations to Christine Cohen, who was recently elected to succeed Ted Kennedy as our state senator. On behalf of all of the board, congratulations, and we are going to miss you, but on the other hand, I think we're probably going to all have your number on our cell phones, and we'll be looking forward to your getting the budget under control. Since we've done all right in Guildford, we're looking for you to now solve the Hartford problem. Terrific. That's why we do. I would like to ask the board's consent to add an agenda item, at least a preliminary discussion about the replacement process. Not to come to any decisions tonight, obviously, but at least put it out there that we are going to start talking about it. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll do that under board agenda, I would guess. But before we get on to the minutes, Mr. Fessel is here, and I'd certainly like to invite you to come forward, Mr. Fessel, and tell us what's going on in the veteran community.
My name is Ted Fessel. I've been around Guildford for 64 years with my wife, and it's a great town. That's all I got to say. I got my wife and my son's, of course, very active in town, and you do a great job with him. He's way up there in the ranks in the Navy, and I'm very proud of him. And he's to the left of the country. I can talk all night about him, but I'm not. I just want to say we had a great time yesterday event on the Guildford Green. We appreciated everybody from all walks of life in Guildford and in the area, and the VA from West Haven, a lot of people from the school people, well, and a million kids, and they all wanted to sit in my lap. I consider that an honor. I love the kids. And 18 years I had with the kids out there as crossing guard was one of my best experiences I ever had in my life. And I want to thank all the people who helped us crossing guards, Bill the Terrible people, Bill and his wife, myself. I'm not bragging, but I think we did a wonderful job. But the kids made the job easy. And their folks, the parents were terrific. What they didn't do for us, I'll never forget one girl, once the storm coming out, I was down all by myself in the car. They told me to get in the car and keep warm. And the storm was coming down, and all of a sudden this car came out of nowhere and it stopped. So a lady came out with a little daughter. The daughter was worrying about me, how I was doing. And I really made me feel 12 feet tall. And I'm happy to hear we're going to get some crossing guards for somebody, and I understand that's going to happen. And I'm happy to see that happen, because you can have a fortress for a school, but that road is very wild in front of Adams School especially. And the road down the Boston Street down there by Cal Leaks wild too. And I want to say the veterans yesterday all got honored, each and every one of us. And I got this surprising honor, my son, my wife, and me. And I thought that was the nicest thing that ever happened to me. They recognize what we have done for the country. And the best team I ever played on was a 16 million team of war veterans, 16 million strong. Most of the fellows passed away. And all the ones I was with, because just like yesterday, I still can remember being with them. And we stuck together. And I wish the country would get together, be bilateral, and work together with each other, even sometimes we don't like each other. And I'm not shooting at Trump or anybody, but there's got to be some way to do things better than have to knock people down. It's not American. There should be more stability in politics. And in Guildford, I work with all the politicians. I couldn't tell the Republicans from the Democrats. They're all sensible, nice guys, you know. And I give my nephew support in Brantford with the Democrat. He won 3 terms over there, and he did a great job for Brantford. And I like this idea that the Beacon Group, their movement, they have all the towns from East Haven to Old Lyman and so far as Essex work together on things to save money, work on budgets, work on business, social problems, economic, and whatever. They think they can save us a ton of money. And I understand this movement is going all over the country, and I'm very proud of being a Beacon. I can't say what my son's doing right now because it's confidential, and I would love to, though. Of course, I love that. But I'm very proud to be your friend for all these many years. I lose count on the years. I was very happy with the ball teams. I did supportive of the sideliners. I coached. I umpired soccer. I worked hard with Bill Wallach. My father was a famous German soccer player. He came over from Madison to help us out, and they did a great job helping Bill. And they won the first ever varsity championship in '69. And my son, he did very well in basketball and baseball. He was very good too. By the way, I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm very happy about it. I'll be honest. My wife's a Yankee fan, and she took it in stride. We have we stick up. When the Yankees play anybody but the Red Sox, I stick up for the Yankees. I came down a long ways, and it compromised, you know, and vice versa. She likes the Red Sox too, and then somebody out here, Ann likes the Mets, and I love the Mets. But sports, I did a lot with the kids in that, and I was in the fire department too. It's like a lot of people in those days, a volunteer fire department, and they had a professional from New Haven come out to train us. And I was in the biggest fire in Guildford's history, where the people all got died. We were the 2 guys that I got there trying to get in there to help them. They put a rope around me and went in there, and the heat knocked me out. I came to. We saved a lot of them, but unfortunately we lost some. And my brother-in-law Nick Mancini's a great family, believe me. We have one right here, Jimmy Mancini here. He does a lot for the town. With the church, and I think public service is the way to go. We have many people who are actually commit suicide with the veterans for one reason or another, and my doctor said that public service work is helping them a lot. Things that I do, like work with the kids, coaching and scouting and stuff, it helped them immensely to prevent more suicides. And I worked with the doctors, a few experiments to fight the heart diseases, and I did that for a while. And I tried to do what I could do. As one person, I wanted to see how far I can do. And I'm happy I did a lot. And they made me feel 15 feet tall yesterday. Larry Santa Maria, the commander of our VFW. And Ron DiMartino, he's our new commander for the Legion. And they like my work, and the kids like my work especially. And some actually, they come in on the Meals on Wheels. Some are grown women now, so they have their own kids. And they still remember me out there now. We used to get together and talk baseball and stuff like that. And how one bus would be all Yankees, and one bus would be all Red Sox. And we'd go by, and we had a lot of fun. And even the bus drivers went along and had a lot of fun with me. And I wish everybody a safe year and a happy year, a prosperous year, and I hope our political parties will meet somewhere in the middle somewhere and cut out all this nonsense of beating each other down. It's un-American, and we don't want that to happen. But I do say, if they all copy how the veterans stuck together in World War II, and we beat the Depression by working together, they didn't worry about nationalities, color, or anything. My father's a German-American. He came over, and he did very well. He trained hundreds of German tool makers. He also made beer, of course. Yeah, all the Germans like the beer. But that's all I got to say. I wish you well, and I know you got more important things than me talking about somebody's beer.
Well, no, not at all. We're grateful to really everything that you've done for the Guildford community. We know that you've had your fingers in a lot of different activities through the years, and I think I can say on behalf of the entire board that there are very, very few people that have contributed more to the fabric of this community than you have, Mr. Fessel.
When I pass away, I want my grave to say, I was in front of the kids. That's all I want my Okay, thank you very much, and wish you all well.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda is action on the minutes of the October 9 and October 22nd meetings. Is there a motion to approve the October 9 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, changes, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then October 22, the workshop meeting, that was with the leadership team. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Any corrections, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item 4 on the agenda is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Anybody? Please, come on up. Just give us your name and address, if you could, please.
Polly Reeder, 1701 Moose Hill. Just a small item, but with regard to, since it's on the agenda tonight, from where we lived previously, I was struck when we came here about how the district calendar is organized. It has a fantastic number of professional development opportunities, parent-teacher conferences, et cetera. And just putting this out there, where we lived previously also recognized the Jewish holidays and had a similar number of instruction days and whatnot. But somehow, magically, they were able to typically couple a superintendent's conference day or professional development or parent-teacher conferences. Well, not necessarily always parent-teacher conferences, but those things would typically be on a Friday, or they would be in conjunction with a Jewish holiday day, like if that holiday was on a Tuesday. And then that would give everyone also a Monday, potentially off, except for working, educational professionals in the K through 12. And so so I don't know if I'm making sense or not. So, because what we experience here, I think, is as parents, we often feel like there are these random Wednesday afternoons when the students are dismissed early. And that's refreshing in some regards, but I would imagine that for parents who have to work full-time or don't have flexible schedules, that they really have to plan ahead in terms of what they're going to do with their child. And we just found it beneficial to, if we were going to go visit family out of state or take a long weekend or whatnot, we could look at those days where the district had put two things together and made it at least be a Friday with a weekend or a Monday with a weekend or a Monday-Tuesday with a weekend, rather than having what feels like random Wednesday afternoons until you get used to where they fall on the calendar. So that was just, and I have no idea. I mean, maybe there's a good reason that it is like that.
So we have talked about it some in the past. I think one of the things that we tried to do by putting the professional development days in the middle of the week was to encourage actually staff participation. In other words, that if that is not something, and the staff has been great. I'm not suggesting that there was anything less than great participation, but it's something we can talk about. We have talked about it some in the past. I know exactly what you're saying. I think the Jewish holidays present a little more challenge because we can't really ask staff that would be observing Jewish holidays to come in, and so we would be excluding a certain amount of our staff for professional development on those days if we were to schedule professional development on those days. So,
well, it was never just to clarify. It would be scheduled in conjunction, like if the Jewish holiday happened to fall on a Tuesday.
Oh.
I don't know what there would be I don't know what was happening, but there would be a superintendent's conference day. One of those 3 or 4 of the calendar year or of the academic year would fall on that Monday. So then giving families who are Jewish or not Jewish, you automatically had a weekend and a Monday and Tuesday, instead of a weekend plus a Tuesday, whether or not you observed it as a Jewish holiday personally.
Yeah, we don't also have superintendent conference days unless you want to start instituting
I think they're
them.
probably what we would refer to as the 5 professional development days.
Yeah.
People
Okay.
use different
Yeah.
names for those.
Okay. The calendar has historically been one of the most challenging things we ever put together, because and we actually, the fact that we were in session now on Veterans Day was a little bit unusual. It was a holiday here, and schools were closed until, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
But really, in combination, in conjunction with some of the veterans groups, we decided that, given how early it is in the year, given how we could probably more sensibly and more reasonably honor veterans by having in-school events rather than just closing the schools, and with the proliferation of snow days and hurricane days and everything other kind of days, I was thrilled when I saw the draft calendar and it says, the last day of school is going to be June 12th. Well, it's not going to be June 12th. It's going to be June
26th.
20-something. Yeah, it's a struggle. It is. I understand what you're saying, and it's certainly something we can talk about. Tonight is just a receive item, with the calendar.
Yeah, and I will comment on some of those items when we deliver the calendar later in your agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, it was something that was
A fair point.
it made it so much more convenient, whether or not one observed the Jewish holidays, to have whatever it was, the time when, at least for the non-staff, non-teacher folks, you could easily make a long weekend out of it. You could easily, as a parent who worked or even had a flexible working schedule, having a Friday half day for your kid is way less stressful than having these Wednesday half days. And actually, I just looked at the calendar for this current year before earlier today, and they've done something new, I believe, which is instead of having half days in which then the other half was parent-teacher conferences, they've gone to taking a whole day with no kids reporting to school, no students, and that's half parent-teacher conferences and half professional development, which would thereby eliminate the busing cost and et cetera, if no one was in the school for the day that were students.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Anybody else? We do that later. Yeah. If that's all right, we do. Okay. So, are we up to expenditure review?
Yes. So I reviewed the expenditures for the month and discussed it during the Operations Committee, and reviewed the details, and would like to make a motion to approve the expenditures for October for $4,307,976.40.
Okay. Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any particular highlights, anything unusual that we should know about? And we did talk about this in some detail in the Operations Committee meeting.
Yeah, I think the one thing to be mindful of is the special education expenditures that are likely to occur going forward this year.
Right. We're going to be keeping an eye on that, obviously, and trying to figure coverage on that. But there are some unanticipated outplacements that arose after we adopted the budget 8 months ago, I guess about it, right? So not surprising necessarily, but something we are going to have to pay attention to.
We're going to watch and try to offset those costs in other areas of the budget as we move forward.
Right. All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Communications, anybody have anything of substance? Oh, it was pretty quiet, relatively speaking. Yeah. Art, yeah, there were quite a few on art, but yeah.
Which we will take up during the budget development.
Right, exactly. Student reps, what can you tell us?
So for this month at A.W. Cox, the students are running for student council, and they are writing their speeches that will be delivered to the rest of their student body. And the voting for their representatives will be taking place later this week. The students will also be honored for showing kindness, as they have been doing in the past couple months, at a school assembly. They'll be recognized by their teachers and students formally for the kindness of the past couple of months. And the PTO is running a after-school running club, which many of the students have been very excited for. At Guildford Lakes, the first grade class went on a field trip to the Green to collect leaves for a science project. And several students' parents came as mystery readers and read stories to the children at school. At Lakes, they are continuing to work on school safety, focusing on cafeteria and bus safety in particular. Their school safety goals for this year are based on the 2018 Spring Safe School Climate Survey, and they are preparing for the implementation of new bus protocol after Thanksgiving.
At Adams Middle School, Adams held a breakfast and school-wide assembly this morning to honor local veterans and active servicemen and women. There were a couple of guest speakers. One was Captain Kevin Reed of the U.S. Coast Guard, and another was Commander Bill Abrams of the U.S. Navy. Adams is also hosting a presentation for parents this evening on Blocksy, which is a tool for teachers and parents to monitor and supervise student Chromebook usage. And 8th graders will install witness stones in 3 locations in downtown Guildford on Thursday. And the stones will recognize and commemorate the contributions made to the town by enslaved persons who lived here during the 1700s and 1800s. And 8th graders have also been studying slavery in Guildford in their social studies classes. From Baldwin Middle School, students have also been very involved in learning about and honoring veterans during Veterans Day. A week prior to Veterans Day, they initiated an at-home activity encouraging families to talk about family members and friends that are veterans. And from that activity, they created a Veterans Day Wall of Honor display. And in addition, they held a school-wide assembly that recognized veterans, and they sang the Star-Spangled Banner and recited the Pledge of Allegiance, and also took a moment of silence. And finally, they had the most significant and meaningful part of their day took place during lunch, where several veterans visited the students during lunch and recess periods, and the veterans talked to the students and answered their questions.
All right, and at Melissa Jones, they had a great Halloween carnival a couple of Fridays ago, right before Halloween. I was there volunteering, so I can bear witness that it was pretty great. All the kids seemed to really love it. And it's really fun because the games are run by Baldwin students, and decorating and special events are set up by parents and Guildford High School volunteers. And there were raffles, there was a cookie walk, trick-or-treating, a dance party, Halloween games, and a moonlight hayride. And students in 3rd grade are learning about ocean animals and their habitats. And this unit of study began with a visit to Mystic Aquarium to observe marine animals. 2nd graders are involved in a STEM unit called Catching the Wind and Designing Windmills. And the goals of the unit include using engineering design principles and understanding what engineers do. And they also apply mathematics problem solving and recognize how society influences engineering designs. Also this past week, there was an ice cream social and book fair, and there was a Veterans Day assembly on Monday in the gym, followed by class talks with veterans. And in a similar vein, at Calvin Leet, they observed Veterans Day today, with an all-school assembly to honor and recognize veterans and active duty service members within the school community. There were 28 guests who attended this ceremony, including parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and other relatives. After introducing the guests, 4th grade students shared information about Veterans Day, the branches of the armed forces, and ways to honor those who serve our country. And the Leet students also enthusiastically sang a few songs for the audience. That's that.
From the high school, tomorrow, the 13th, we will have our Veterans Day presentations, which are an annual occurrence here. So every year, several veterans from Guildford come to visit our classes, and all of the history classes during their assigned period come to the library and give the veterans a chance to tell their stories so we can honor them. It's going to be in a panel formation, so there's like 4 to 7 veterans, and they will each have a turn to talk about what they want to talk about, specifically dealing with PTSD and therapeutic healing from trauma. The veterans will also be invited to a Thanksgiving-style turkey lunch after the presentations, where they will meet with members of our social studies department. In other news, GHS Unity Week starts this Wednesday and will continue until next Tuesday, the 20th, which will culminate in a pep rally held in the gym. It is the end of quarter one at the high school, and students will be receiving their report cards on the 19th. The annual tree lighting concert will be held on Friday the 30th of November with a performance by the jazz band. And afterwards, on Friday and Saturday, there will be performances by concert choir and voices in the First Congregational Church, where we'll be singing an arrangement of holiday songs, and tickets are on sale at the marketplace for $10.
So as Abby said, the first pep rally is going to be held on November 20th before Thanksgiving break. And we have several minute-to-win-it events with each class and teachers competing against each other. And Mr. Macenti is going to be involved as well. Also, on November 3rd, we had the homecoming dance. It was very successful. There was a photo booth. There was a lot of dancing, and nearly 300 students attended. And finally, fall sports are wrapping up, and many teams have made deep runs into state and regional tournaments. The boys soccer team finished with 9 wins, 6 losses, and 3 ties, and made it to the second round of the state tournament. Football is 5-3. They have 2 games left in their season, and they play the annual Hand versus Guildford game on the 21st. Girls cross country had an amazing season. They were division champions, conference champions, and finished second in Class L in the Class L tournament. Girls field hockey also had an outstanding season, finishing their regular season with a record of 17 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie. They're the SEC tournament champions, and they're playing in the semifinals of the state tournament tomorrow. And finally, volleyball finished their regular season with 20 wins and 6 losses.
So this Saturday, Mr. Burns, the play, closed. And I'd like to report that around 750 tickets were sold. Not bad. Parent-teacher conferences will be held November 14th and November 15th after school, which is this week. And it's reported that there are 1,408 conferences scheduled for this November. And National Honor Society will also be having a bake sale on those days to raise money for their endeavors. And also this week, French Honor Society celebrated French National Week from November 5th through the 9th, though it's still running, sort of, by posting fun facts about France around the school and on the signboards. And National Honor Society held their fall induction on November 7th, and 24 seniors were inducted, bringing the total members of National Honor Society up to about 80 students. And finally, the Action Against Hunger Can Drive is in full swing, and this is a drive where every first period class collects cans to be donated to the Guildford Food Bank.
Great. All right. Questions? Anybody have any questions or observations or comments? All right. Well, you've probably got tests or quizzes or homework or something to do, so unless you want to stick around and join us for the rest of the evening, you can go and get to work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Freeman, short report for Dr. Freeman.
Very short report tonight. Again, just a reminder, we have completed our first 2 meetings at the board level around the budget build this year. We met with the leadership team and the board, and we held our first public hearing on budget topics. We begin working on our budget build internally in earnest over these next couple of weeks. We'll be meeting with every principal, every department head, and beginning to put the large components into that budget build. You heard earlier during your operations meeting from Joe Spurgeon about what we anticipate the ballpark insurance impact to be. We will have that put together for you for your January meeting. And we'll keep you apprised. The only other item that I did want to note, it's not listed on your agenda, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We have at this time begun posting and advertising for the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. We're looking at a calendar that would have us in the teeth of the search for the months of January and February. We hope to bring a candidate before the Board of Education as early as March so that we can have an approval and we can be on track for a July 1 date. I did want to note that the advertising for this has gone out nationally. We are, in addition to advertising in the Hartford Courant with CAPS, with CEA, and with a local REAP website, we are also advertising in EdWeek, which is a national publication, and we are advertising on the AASA website, which is the National Organization for School Superintendents and Administrators. Additionally, we will be getting information out to Friends and the Center for Assessment, the Institute for Learning, and Inside Education, who all have a national profile as well and have done really deep instructional and curricular work with us in district, as well as working through the Connecticut Center for School Change and UConn, also both organizations more locally that have deep relationships and have done significant work with us. So this is one of the most important positions that we will fill, and we're casting our net wide, and we've got time in front of us to make sure that we do a thorough and a complete search. And that concludes my report.
What's happening?
Just say what's happening. I don't think we want to discourage it.
No, I mean, I can think of other stuff.
We have some other things. All right, any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All right, and I think we did have we were going to get a report in the Operations Committee meeting about a transportation update, and Mr. Bowden is not available tonight, as it turned out, so we're going to get that probably as part of the board agenda.
Correct. Yeah, we apologize for
Superintendent's report next month.
Correct.
Okay, but I take it, are things smoother?
Things have settled down to a large degree. We are approaching the point that we are confident that our routes are currently as predictable, as reliable, and as reasonable as they were last year. Now, that's not perfect. I have often described our schedule over the last several years as more optimistic than realistic. But the schedules, the bus routes are running much, much better. And again, I give Mr. Dorwin and Mr. Bowden and the team at Specialty a lot of credit. They've been meeting weekly. We've been working diligently on the most troublesome routes, and I think you'll see at your next meeting when you receive the numbers that we've brought it down to a very reasonable situation at this time. It was longer than we would have hoped, but we've worked our way through most of the concerns.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Board agenda, first of 9.1 is to act on two personnel items. One is to ratify the appointment of an administrator, specifically Jacqueline Ham as coordinator of special education. That is to replace Mr. Scanziano, I take it, who has been elevated up to the director position.
That is correct, and she's to begin her work here on November 19th, and we're very excited.
And what can you tell us about her?
Yeah. Mrs. Ham has been in the Brantford school system for some time. She has been a special educator with particular experience in alternative high school settings. She completed her administrative training through UConn. This will be her first full-time administrative position, but we have every confidence that she is going to be a perfect fit for the needs here at the high school and a good member of the special education team moving forward. I will note that as part of her administrative training through the UConn program, she completed an internship here in the Guildford Public Schools at Baldwin under Mr. Hamill's tutelage. We are very excited to have somebody that well trained coming on board and joining our team.
All right. Is there a motion to ratify her appointment?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then there's also to ratify an appointment of a teacher, Jacqueline Goodrich, who is a grade 5 teacher at Baldwin, effective 2 weeks ago. I guess she's already on duty.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to ratify her appointment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
9.2 is to receive for possible action a bid for snow removal here at the high school. This was talked about in the Operations Committee meeting. Ms. Cohen, I think you can discuss
Sure.
this.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit in operations, and the operations team of the BOE received, I had a bid meeting. 3 businesses came to the meeting. It's our understanding that 2 bid on snow removal. And the way the bid is presented is in terms of snowfall rather than providing a retainer, which is something we had done in the past, but it's sort of a risk, to do it that way, not knowing how much snowfall we will have in any given year. So this has worked well for us, I guess the past 2 years, right, doing it by snowfall. And so the bid's presented in a way that provides an amount per service based on the number of inches we receive. And based on that information and what we know to be true based on our location here in Connecticut and how much snowfall we traditionally receive, the business that seems to be favorable is the business that we've used in the past, Landmark Services. So I believe that would be the recommendation. And I don't know if we want to, I can put forth a motion or if we want to discuss it further.
We did talk about it some
At
operations,
operations.
obviously. And just
Anybody have any questions? I don't know.
the
But-
structure of the bid is that it's a certain amount. If the snow is 6 inches or less, it's
Right.
some one amount. If it's more than 6 inches, it's another amount. The bids were, it feels to me like they were
Very
competitive with
similar.
each other.
Yep,
right?
very similar.
But given that we've had a positive experience with
Mm-hmm.
Landmark for the past couple of years anyway, and this isn't only at the high school, we do it internally at all of the other buildings.
Correct.
Right.
So, I think there was consensus in the operations committee meeting, so
Right.
if that is a motion that
Right.
we approve this bid.
For Landmark Services for snow removal here at the high school.
Okay, second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 9.3 is a little unusual for us. This is a request, we've had a request from one of the board members of Guildford Day to support a resolution that the Tolland Board of Education is intending to present at the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education meeting later this month, where the Tolland Board of Education is recommending that CABE adopt a resolution opposing the full legalization of marijuana. This is a matter, obviously, of great public discussion, great public concern, but in all directions, because both locally and nationally. I don't know. I think Dr. Freeman talked to CABE a little earlier, or one of the staff members at CABE a little earlier today to try to get a better sense about what may happen at that level. And we recognize this is going to be an issue in the General Assembly probably this year, and there are lots of states, obviously, that have had experience with it. I spent about 5 minutes today just kind of running through some of the studies about what's happened in Colorado, and I certainly don't feel like I was able to exhaust them. The Colorado Department of Public Safety just issued about a 275-page report. There have been a couple of NIH studies. There have been some. So in any event, there's a lot of data out there that I haven't fully reviewed. But maybe we should just turn it to you, Dr. Freeman, for just a minute to say what you learned from CABE.
Yeah, I did speak with Patrice McCarthy, who is the policy lead at CABE. She reminds the board that this Thursday, prior to the CABE conference on Friday, their delegate assembly will be meeting and will be discussing this resolution. So at this time, CABE has taken no action on this resolution. I do know that boards of education around the state are weighing the fact that this is at the same time both a health and wellness conversation and a political conversation of some import at the state level. So CABE will be entertaining that conversation on Thursday. Patrice asked that I bring 2 suggestions. One is that we are finding around the state that boards are Well, CABE is recommending that boards follow their regular policy time frame around a resolution of this nature. She is suggesting that rather than entertain and take action in one meeting, that boards receive the resolution and discuss it at one meeting and allow their communities time to know that the conversation is happening and to give people an opportunity to speak at least at a second meeting before the board takes action. Additionally, Patrice asked me to encourage any of you, if you are available, to attend that delegate assembly on Thursday. They are encouraging board members to come and be part of an active conversation at the delegate assembly on Thursday. They're not looking for boards all to take individual actions and then try to I think they'd rather be in a position of leading boards rather than be in a position of trying to count up how many have been supportive and how many may not have been supportive of a resolution of this nature. I've also had several conversations with Day over the last couple of years around this topic. I know that Bo Hune was on NPR earlier today, part of a discussion about legalization at the state level. It's an important conversation, but it's also a big conversation, and so Patrice was happy to make those two suggestions to you as you begin thinking about the proposal in front of you.
So, it would not be our nature to just do this in a one meeting. We and particularly with the amount of literature that there is out there, and the experience in Colorado and in other places. Washington, I guess, is also not only decriminalized, but I guess legalized. So there is a lot of data out there, and so I'll do whatever we can do whatever we want to do. Obviously, I think any individual board member can communicate with any CABE delegate, our CABE delegate, to talk about any individual views. I'm sure we all have them, but I ask what process you all would like to follow in acting on this. If we act on it at all, we don't have to, but it is a matter of some significant concern, obviously, and we do have a point of view, potentially.
I will say I've been researching this a lot lately, and I even with all of my research, don't feel prepared to make a decision on this. I think that there's so much information that we need to assemble before we can make an educated decision whether to support the opposition of legalization. So that's my thought.
I actually printed out some of the Colorado studies, and I left them on my printer, which is kind of useless. But they're really easy to find, and
I know Bo Hune has many, and Dr. D'Souza has a lot of documentation opposing legalization, and there's certainly a lot of documentation, which I was listening to NPR a little bit today, and
it's a great conversation.
On the contrary. So, but yes, easy to find, but I'm sure we could call on some of these local advocates in one direction or another to provide us with information as well.
You have any thoughts?
Well, I think we should just treat it as we typically do, as a receive item, read it and do our own research and discuss at the next meeting, decide whether or not to put it on as a potential action item. Next meeting is probably the only decision we need to make at this meeting.
And by your next meeting, I'll be able to advise you about any conversation or direction taken by CABE. And so you will have that in front of you, or behind you rather than in front of you, the next time that you come to it. So I'm sure that their conversation will be informative to local boards.
Can I ask just a clarification question then? What's in our envelope here is what was submitted by the town Board of Education, right?
Yes.
And then and what they note as a resolution as CABE advocating against is a little preliminary?
Well, it's a proposed resolution. I mean, it is, in other words, they're presenting this as a resolution, be it resolved that CABE would oppose the legalization. In other words, CABE has not taken that position.
I just needed that clarification because it was a little confusing.
Any wording coming out of their meeting on Thursday could be different, could be
right.
And I think, like one city, Waterbury, I think, fast-tracked an approval of something like this, and then some other parts of the town government said, wait a minute, it's a little too quick, we need a little more robust discussion about this, and they vacated they were
requesting that
requested that it be vacated from the other side of the town government, apparently. So, we don't want to get too far ahead of this. And it's not something that we usually do, obviously. But there may be a very good reason for us to do something here. So.
Can we have a conversation at a workshop meeting?
I was going to ask that if we could do something.
Yeah, we can do whatever we want. That's
Sure, we
the
can
nice thing about
absolutely, we can,
controlling the agenda.
There you
We can-
go.
Sure.
yep. We can put that on your next workshop agenda rather than waiting for your next regular
Yeah, and then
business
what's an
agenda. We'll
easy way
still
to
have the
decide if we're
information
gonna
from
put it
CABE by
as
that
a
time. Yep,
Act on.
thank you.
There may be some of the literature that's developed and presented at the CABE meeting could be provided to us in advance of that workshop meeting.
Happy to.
You know, I will say, by the way, that at least according to my sources, juuling in the high school and in the middle schools too is a very significant problem.
So we will say that juuling and vaping has been a significant challenge for parents and educators at large. It is significantly harder to police than traditional tobacco smoke for a number of reasons. We, in fact, hosted an evening on, we didn't host, we participated in an evening on November 5th with local practitioners and experts. I know that Mr. Regan from Adams was one of the members of the panel talking about the challenges, both the attraction to young adolescents, the difficulty in policing as both a parent and as a school. It is definitely harder to monitor than traditional tobacco smoke that we have been familiar with in the past. It's a topic of numerous conversations.
My kids actually, my two high school kids, brought it up at a family dinner last night on their own and had a lot to say about it.
I know there's discussion about legislation to more strictly control the sale and the monitoring of them at local establishments, the advertising towards adolescents, the ease of adolescents accessing them, understanding exactly what the dangers are, and then again, as I said, the policing of it is more difficult than a traditional pack of cigarettes for just a number of reasons.
I wonder, in conjunction with Guildford Day, if there's something we could do around education, because it does seem to be such a prevalent issue.
I'm not sure what the attendance was like at the event last week, but it's something that we need to do more of, absolutely.
I mean, is it something we could talk about doing in school during school hours?
Possibly, sure, certainly added
I think beyond educating parents, I think educating students on, the addictive nature of these products and, what it's doing to them. And I think it's something we should really be.
There's actually pretty good data that not only is it addictive, but it's also harmful.
And highly addictive.
very
Even
addictive.
more addictive
Very
than cigarettes
harmful.
because it has higher levels of nicotine. And that they're being marketed and sort of played
They're
for a
clearly
fool,
being marketed
and,
for to kids, clearly.
I think it would be great to do something, either maybe with Guildford Youth and Family Services or Guildford
Or
Day, or even a collaboration of all three, and really try and get something out, some messaging out to, I'd even say Baldwin through high school.
Oh, absolutely, yes. You need to target the younger students. It's not just a high school.
I think it's a very common conversation among these students. And knowing so-and-so is doing it or hearing about it, and I'm from 5th grade up.
Yeah.
So they're talking about it, so it'd be nice to capture that and educate them in their environment and not necessarily only at the kitchen table.
And I think sooner rather than later would be beneficial. So,
Seem reasonable?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so maybe we can talk about both of those things. Sure. Right?
Certainly be an easily combined topic. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're equivalent or not, but they're at least in the same end of the spectrum, shall we say. So.
There's a theme.
Yeah. Okay. 9.4 is to receive the school calendar draft. We've already talked about that some, but this is not an action item tonight. And I guess I know we've talked about doing the staff days, the PLC days on Fridays or in the past, and specifically put them on Wednesdays. Am I making it up as a reason?
No, and I will note that one of the foundational pieces behind the calendar, remember, again, to a conversation that you and I had, is that we are continuing to the best of our ability to cooperate with a regional template calendar. And so all of the learn-related school districts work to align our start dates, our end dates, our major vacations, particularly the ones that fall in December and April, and then a number of our professional development days, so that we are generating efficiency around busing. Remember that we have students who do attend outlying schools even on days that we are not in session. And so by aligning with those other school districts, when we share transportation, we don't increase transportation costs to those locations. And then dates like both this most recent November PD Day and the PD Day that falls in March, by aligning with all of the other school districts in the LEARN area, we have the opportunity to collaborate with other districts to share professional development, to have those folks visit us, or to send our people out to participate in others. So much of the calendar that you see before you tonight is a simple result of working hard to align to that LEARN template. The Wednesdays, while there's a lot of benefit to trying to strategically move them to align with other dates that move around the calendar, we've also sort of established a pattern of the Wednesday release. And so once you do have that pattern established in your community, I then worry about releasing that pattern, and then if you tie it to a holiday that moves every year, it begins to be less predictable moving forward. I'll also note that if you look at the full day professional development days that are marked in blue, and then the early release professional development opportunities that are marked in yellow, you see that we try to spread an opportunity into every month, where there is professional learning every month of the calendar. December is an exception because of the challenges of a December calendar. We have concerts and we have special events that happen throughout the district, and families are challenged with the December calendar. And then in March, you see that there's two, and that's a result of moving a date out of February, where we have just consistently run into snow day complications. But the pattern was to create an early release that is locked in and predictable for the families year over year over year, which we have established, to try to create an extended learning opportunity for professionals at least once a month as we move through the school year, and then we try to tie that into a learning arc for our staff. So it's not perfect. Nothing would be perfect, but that's the logic behind creating the calendar that you see in front of you tonight. And again, Mr. Bloss, you're right. There's no reason for you to take action tonight. This is a receive only. The community receives it. We can certainly entertain more comments at your next meeting before you need to take any action on this.
If I could add just a little bit about the Wednesday. Wednesdays are the days by contract that our staff has a faculty meeting. So by having and it's not a half day, it's a 2-hour early release. By capturing that with the faculty meeting time, that does give us 3 hours of work with staff. And on those days, it's the one time that we can have K-12 people together. There is about an hour and a half of overlap. So if music teachers K-12 or world language teachers K-12 or the science curriculum committee K-12 needs to get together, they have the opportunity to do that. There are also opportunities during that time for all 4 elementary schools to come together. Yes, all the elementary schools have faculty meeting on Wednesdays, but by the time they get together, you might have 30 minutes of a joint by the time Jones gets down to lead or whatever.
If we were to move it to any other day of the week, we would lose that hour of time, or we would need to negotiate placing it. And I could tell you that negotiating a longer day on Fridays would be a challenge with opening that up for a negotiation item. So it was done a number of years ago.
So there were some other things, it was really about how do we capture as much time to have that ongoing and that coherence and having conversations, not just with grade level teams in my own building, but across subject areas K-12. And so there are opportunities to do that, and that's the only time that we have to do that.
I know other districts that do it as delayed openings,
right.
One day a month, and that's a great opportunity as well. What's important is that once you make a decision, you sort of stick with it so that the community does get to get used to it, become comfortable with it, and be able to anticipate it.
So one thing that worked well, I know, in our neighboring town of Madison this year was they threw a PD day the day after Halloween, and I noticed that the November PD day lends itself well to being able to do that. So that might be a consideration, moving that to November 1st
November
instead,
5.
which is a Friday.
Well, it's
That's
election day. You should know that. Except you wouldn't.
Because our schools are polling places.
Christine, we used to do that. We used to be open.
It's so perfect.
Yeah, it would. And we used to be
Only I had
open.
paid attention.
We used to be open even on the November election days,
Yeah.
but we have tried for safety and security reasons to
Oh, and
adopt.
I will tell you, I was watching in Madison that debacle this year, and it was not great.
Well, there's actually a state law that says if the school buildings are open, you have to have a security guard to prevent people
Well,
from
it was tough. That I mean,
Parking
watching
is
Brown
awful.
Middle
Yeah.
School this year,
So-
and I know they have. It was an anomaly this year with so many people at the
We
polls.
still do that on referendum day,
Yeah.
but on election day, we have tried to have the students out of the building, and especially this year, with the turnout we had this year, to have had school, it would have been a challenge.
So here's the counter argument, and maybe Senator To Be Cohen was anticipating this. That's a municipal election. It's not a state election. The selectmen are not
That's
up.
true. That's true.
The only people that are up are Board of Finance and
That's true.
and some of the Board of
Board of Ed,
Education,
right.
Maybe not even all of the Board of Finance, right? It's just probably only half of them.
Right, so it would be like
So
a
this would not,
referenda
I mean,
almost
as
when
much
we
as
have
I would like to
schools open.
pretend that there would be a 65% turnout for a Board of Education election, it's
14.
not going to happen. That's actually, we can think about that, because that's
Sure.
actually an argument.
For 1 year, for this
No,
particular
the problem
year.
is it moves it, then it's
Yeah.
moving it back and forth.
That's
because
true.
The following year's a presidential, and then we really.
For sure
need
you
to-
wouldn't want to
Well,
have.
which
Right.
is,
Right,
I mean,
and so again,
but
you're
we
jumping
move
back
those
and
to
forth.
PDDs anyway.
And
I
for,
mean,
Right,
we
it's
really,
just a
it's
random
not- that's
Tuesday.
a-
I mean, it's election day for next year, but
I don't think it's a big deal to move
Right.
that professional.
I anticipate you might have a large absence on
well,
that Friday
so
the 1st.
I say this
because of
very
it.
respectfully, but I do note to Mr. Bloss's earlier note that a Friday is not always the best learning opportunity for professionals. To schedule that opportunity on a Friday.
Well, I'd argue that the Friday after Halloween is not the best learning opportunity for students.
Granted, none in favor
And
of
I
making
think teachers
Halloween the last Friday
may
in
actually
October,
like
believe me.
may actually like not having students.
But we
the
only
day after
have 2
Halloween.
precious days during the school
Right.
year, and we really try to plan those very carefully, and because we try to front load. But our 2 PD days and are aligned with the regional.
The regional calendar.
Yeah.
And I can certainly bring
Is that
that
right?
suggestion back to our principal. I can
Yes.
bring that back to our leadership team. So before you discuss it at your next meeting, I will have feedback for you from our leadership team about the 5th versus the 1st and what they're thinking.
So then so Madison doesn't align with the regional calendar then?
Everybody does to greater and lesser degree, and so Madison continues, I believe, to have a full week off in February. I know that some schools continue to have the day off on Veterans Day as
Right.
opposed to what we're doing today. So there are differences, but it is more aligned than it's ever been in my career.
But I meant in terms of the PD, because they had done that differently.
Yeah, they make some different decisions, and I believe Madison is still working hard to come in after Labor Day every year. So
Yeah.
Madison may not be one of the most aligned districts to the template, but overall, the whole region is much more aligned. I recall an April vacation in my family where we had 4 different April vacations between the district in which I worked, the community in which we lived, the one where my wife was. I mean, it was nuts.
The other thing, to state the obvious, is 4 of our 5 voting districts in this town
Correct.
are
Are
at
schools.
schools.
Right.
And that's
Right.
not the case for Madison, right?
Right.
We're not
They're
talking about one location.
Yeah, so for us, that's a much bigger factor.
And some of them are less than ideal. So, right, even in the smaller elections, there continues to be a lot of discussion about the placement in some of the buildings. For instance, the gymnasium at Jones is not the most easily accessible location, and so to have school happening and have the cars coming through the parking lot, even for a small turnout, it has become concerning. We have had parents who have chosen not to send their students to school when we were in on election day, even for some of our smaller elections. I believe some parents still do it even for the referendum that we hold in April.
So just Jones was not always a voting place in North Guildford. It used to be at the firehouse, and that became a traffic problem and parking and was dangerous, and so we were prevailed upon to make the school available. But it's not, it's not great space. It's okay, but it's not great space. I mean, if you've ever been up there before dawn on an election day, it's a little dark and bleak. But
and when the weather's not great, that's a hard space to access. Yeah.
No, it's but there's not a lot of alternatives up there.
I'll certainly ask the leadership team that question on the November date in particular and the PD days in general, and have feedback from the principals as well. I know they take those days very seriously.
I have one more little notice.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I know. I just get this question a lot, and because of our neighboring districts, is about starting 2 days before Labor Day weekend. And I guess my curiosity and the curiosity of others I've talked to is how well is attendance on those 2 days?
Great.
It's high. Yeah. So I always get this question though, like why do we send them for 2 days and then they have 3 days off and they kind of lose momentum? And
I think this year
I know what the answer is, but
we didn't have a full 5-day week this year until October. I believe that and so the answer really has become the tightness of the calendar and the more severe winters we've been experiencing and the worry, even with the last day scheduled to be the 12th, I really worry that we don't end up into the week of the 22nd. Any recent winter gives us more than five snow days that we end up having to absorb. So we did open after Labor Day 3 years ago, I believe, and it was around the move of this site, and we were lucky in that it was a summer where things fell a little bit better, but it mostly comes down to being able to get those days in so that you pull those days out of June. We have not struggled with attendance on those days. I think parents are ready to have their kids back in school.
Another kind of benefit from the elementary principal's perspective is, especially for those young students just getting started, that gives them 2 days, and it's a gradual piece, and it also kind of gives the bus company some time to kind of get things settled so that then when they return after Labor Day, they're really ready to learn. And we've kind of worked out some of the kinks. And at the high school, they're using some of that time, to change schedules and to do some of those pieces. So they really think it's kind of an efficient use.
We did look at it this year. Because of the way September is structured, we actually considered it this year.
That's why I was asking, because we have a long September in a way,
And again, I sort of also fell back to the idea of trying not to make different decisions every year, right? So there's sort of a logic to the way the calendar has been working. You get that Thursday and Friday in August, and then you move on from there. And I do think predictability has a value, even if it's not perfect. I think predictability.
Well, there's one, you're right, in the last couple of years where we started on a Wednesday. Didn't we start on a Wednesday?
We did. We moved the PD days around.
No, I had a number of people say, like, oh my God.
We always start on Thursday.
We didn't know, literally they were not going to be in the state, and they had to come back early from vacation. I think predictability makes it, has an impact.
Same thing, right?
All right, well, this is just a receipt.
Can I have one more? I have one more little notice thing, because I know that we do the fourth Wednesday as the PLC day, but in a couple of those cases, it falls on the week of a Monday holiday. So I wonder...
Like January,
Yeah, January and May. So I wonder if it might behoove us to move those PLC days to a week where there's not such disruption, and have like the January 22nd fall to the 29th,
and then reverse in May.
May 27th move to the May 20th. Just a thought.
I'm happy to bring that back to the leadership team too. So I've got PD days in general, November in specific, and then the January and May.
Because it still gives you, even between the April and May, it would still give you 4 weeks between those PLC days. I don't know, just a thought.
It's certainly an option. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad option.
Okay, well, this is just received tonight, so we can talk about it some more, and we will put it on
the voices of the principals for you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
We do, then 9.5 is to just receive the meeting calendar for the Board of Education for the next year. I think this is pretty predictable.
It's just wedded to the calendar, yep.
Yeah.
And 9.6 is the same.
Right, 9.6 is the operations and the various committee meetings. So
you would take action on all those together, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, so we'll just receive those. 9.7 is the new item, a replacement of a board member, anticipating that Ms. Cohen is going to resign from this position at some point in the future. I just want to outline what the law requires and then make a suggestion about what we should do as a group. Anticipating that she would resign sometime before being sworn into the Senate, which I guess is January 9th. Okay. So upon a resignation of a board member, the town charter says, well, state law says that, first of all, you refer to the town charter. Guildford's charter says two things. One is that where a board member is elected as a member of a political party, the replacement to the board member shall be, quote, if practicable, close quote, a member of the same political party. And we did go through this a few years ago when Republican members resigned. That means that while it would be lawful under the minority representation rules to appoint some non-affiliated. In fact, our charter says that unless there is no other alternative, or whatever if practicable means, that it does have to be a member of the same party, a Democratic Party in this circumstance. The way the vacancy is filled is that the remaining board members, the remaining 8 board members, vote to make an appointment that is valid until the next election, but your term would be expired in the next municipal election anyway, so that would be effectively an appointment until November 2019. The board has done this a few times in my time on the board, and it's done it in 2 different ways. One, back long ago, we just deferred to the relevant party town committee for a recommendation and then adopted that recommendation. That has been done in the past. More recently, we have, as a board, invited applications from people, interest from people, and then met in executive session to review resumes from people, and then interviewed, I think the last time we did it, we interviewed about 5 or 6 people, and then voted to appoint the person. My preference would be to do that. I think it's a better process, and there's no reason for us not to be open. It will take a little more time, and we are going to be getting into the budget season, so time is going to get a little bit valuable. But nonetheless, it's an important thing to do, and I think we ought to probably do it in as open a way as we can, reasonably. If we are unable to decide on an appointment within 60 days, then the Board of Selectmen makes the appointment under our town charter. So that's the rule. And unless there's any, I don't think we need to vote on anything tonight, but unless there's any strong feeling otherwise, that's what I'd suggest, and that we try to start to gear up solicitations of interest anyway for some time in December, try to get some paperwork in, and then maybe try to do some interviews. I'm not sure we can until you've resigned, but then I think you certainly should stay here as long as you can, at least through the December meeting. And so, anybody have any thoughts otherwise? Does this seem reasonable?
No, and just to clarify, so it's a 60-day clock
from the resignation.
From the resignation. Oh, okay.
Correct.
That's great. Okay.
Right.
Not from. Yeah.
Not from the election, because she's still
that's great.
She is a senator-elect,
yes.
And so it's still a member of this board until she resigns.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll of course facilitate the collection of materials. If you want to use my office address, Terry and I will work to collect materials and organize them for the board for your review.
Okay.
How is it advertised, or is it advertised? I know sometimes in the paper there's advertisements for commissions and things like that. Will there be some type of advertisement?
There'll be some kind of notice. I mean, we can either put it out on our own listserv.
We could use our communication system to at least get it out to all of the school families in the town.
I'm sure the Courier would run something. And
we don't communicate outside of school families to the community, but we could easily get it out to all school families for you.
Right. So that's I think a reasonable. It worked in the past. It has been a reasonable process.
It would be good to do it, I think, expeditiously, just so those interested might, they might want to attend Board of Ed meetings and discuss, the possibilities of what it entails, what the position entails with other board members, and reach out and before making the decision to formally throw their hat in the ring.
So if you want to put together a timeline and a message, we'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, it is a limited appointment. It's only for a year.
Right.
Right.
And so, because your seat would be up in November 2019 anyway.
Yep.
So, which may be of interest to people or may not be, right? Depending on what their long-term interests are. So, okay, we'll work that out.
Great.
Okay. Committee reports, policy committee, anything going on?
Policy committee meets in 2 weeks, I believe, so no report now.
Okay. Operations, we've kind of talked about everything, I think. Curriculum instruction and assessment.
We met the end of October on the 22nd, and we briefly had an update about the homework guidelines. My recollection is that there's really no changes happening right now. We're just monitoring and sort of seeing how it goes. The bulk of the conversation was about arts integration in the elementary schools, which is particularly timely since we're talking about it during the budget process. We got a lot of information about what we're doing and how we are doing in just about every subject. Talked about blogs and using it in science, and just it was interesting to find out all the different ways that we're already using it throughout the school day.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right. Town committee liaisons, anything going on? And Learn Board of Directors, we did get a summary. Did you go to the last meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I went to that meeting, and Jack Cross from the Office of Innovation gave a presentation that he was going to share with the Superintendent Summit the following day, and he was quite excited about some of the things that are going on, the regionalization and providing high-quality special education services and cost savings as well to the districts that don't have the benefits that we have here in providing special education services. But the one thing that I shared with you was about the Ocean Avenue building project and the services that they would provide through that. They were still in the throes of some renovation, but they feel very strongly that it'll address situations around behavioral problems, special needs students, stable environment, cost efficiencies for districts, and mobile and physical space to do evaluations. And that was one area that you were sharing with me, that there's some potential.
Yeah, we've already started, we've done some work with Learn already about doing some diagnostics for some of our youngest children. They offer both a mobile unit that can come out as well as a diagnostic placement opportunity. And so it's a great service to have locally, and they do a really good job with it.
Great. All right, well, thank you for going to that. I know it's hard for some of us to get there during the day. It's out in one of the lines, right?
Yes, Old Line.
Yeah. So it's the wrong direction for me, but in any event. All right, thank you.
The director, Eileen Hurley, was almost apologetic, saying, because of the physical proximity of Guildford compared to the other districts that take advantage of the services, that there's limited potential for us. So when they mentioned the mobile and physical space, she looked at me and said, "Now that's an opportunity for Guildford."
There we go. Sounds good. All right, item 11, public questions or comments for items not on the agenda.
Congratulations, Christine. Good evening. My name is Valerie Ferrucci. I live on Little Meadow Road in Guildford. I have 2 children, one in 4th grade at Lakes and a preschooler. As you know, the town has shown a strong support of increasing art in our elementary schools for years now. Many spoke at the last budget meeting, and those who could not sent emails, of which I believe there were many. We have been gaining tremendous support in a short period of time with our petition, and I am pleased to share with you that as of right now, we have 125 local signers. in only 3 weeks. Please note that there are only Guildford residents who have signed, despite having quite a few from out of town, and also parents from all 4 elementary schools. I have the hard copies and I'll distribute them. I've previously spoken about our state guidelines and how we're not meeting them in art in the elementary schools. I have also spoken about my experience volunteering in the art room and how 30 to 40 minutes is not sufficient for our children. There are also numerous studies and articles on how art can help academically, some of which I sent to you all. But what I want to talk about tonight is simply having well-rounded children. Children who are proficient in math, reading, and writing. Children that are physically fit and having a music-rich experience. Children that are gaining an additional language. What about supporting our children's creativity? What about simply art for art? I ask you to please consider our request for full-time art teachers in the elementary schools in the upcoming budget. Just in reading the minutes and hearing some things, I also had a couple of other things. I know art integration was really talked about, at the last meeting. And I don't really understand, although I don't have an issue with art integration, I think it's wonderful. I'm concerned about that integration not being through qualified art teachers. I think it's a lot to ask classroom teachers who may not all feel comfortable integrating art, so I just hope that if that route is being looked at, that it's going to be through a qualified art teacher. And you had mentioned that in the next couple of weeks you're going to be meeting with principals, Dr. Freeman, and I also think it would be really valuable to speak to the art teachers. They may have a lot of really good ideas on what can be done. And even pulling a couple of different staff members that aren't just the principals. They really know what's going on day in and day out. I understand the principals do as well, but they might have some creative ideas. I know it's not an easy thing to do, but there's a lot of people in town that are really passionate about this topic, and I really appreciate your time on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Kripe, and I live at 105 Union Street. And I have a prepared statement in support of a full-time art teacher for my husband and myself. My family and I just recently relocated to Guildford from Colorado. In speaking with some parents, I found out that arts education is lacking in the elementary schools. My husband and I are both employees in the arts and have been for over 20 years each. Our daughter will be in kindergarten next year and loves arts of all kind, and we want that to continue in her schooling. Thinking that arts are less than any technical field or subject, such as math, science, or language, is a mistake. All fields benefit from training in the arts through creativity. An example is building a building, a chair, or even a car. It takes more than a knowledge of math and science to build a car. It requires an artistic sensibility to design a car that people want to buy and drive, or a house that people want to live in. Many employers, as of late, have hired artists to help with team building to further their business. Establishing the creative pathways in the brain at an early age are just as important as establishing pathways for language, math, and science. The arts informs and enhances our performances in all the things that we do. We're not saying that these subjects aren't valuable. We are saying that the arts are just as valuable. In conclusion, we'd like a full-time art teacher in the elementary schools for the 2019-20 school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with questions or comments? All right. That's it, I guess. We don't have any executive session issues tonight.
Executive session.
All right. And is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.